Legends of Runeterra is the absolute best digital card game out there. But instead of wasting 30 minutes of my time and yours talking about how I like the game, I will simply go over the facts. I'll start talking about the gameplay, then I'll talk to you about the beginner-friendly alternative modes, and in the end I'll go over the most important thing that most card games that call themselves free-to-play are missing: the reward system. Let's start with spell mana. In Legends of Runeterra, mana works as you would expect. So you start with 1 mana, it regenerates each turn, and you also get +1 max mana each turn. What happens is that usually you are in a huge disadvantage if you don't use all of your mana in a certain turn, especially in the early turns. Imagine that you only draw cards that cost 3 mana or more on turn 1 and 2. You end up having to skip turns 1 and 2 while your opponent plays 1 or 2 units, and you'll go into turn 3 with nothing on the board while your opponent already has 2 units on the board and has just as much mana as you to play something on turn 3. So that's a huge disadvantage. But in Legends of Runeterra, there is something called spell mana, or some people call it banked mana, that works basically as a reservoir of mana that you didn't use in the past turns. And it goes up to 3 mana. To give an example, if you don't play anything on turn 1 and turn 2, then the 3 mana that you didn't use go to your banked mana or spell mana, and you can use them later. There is actually a strategy that consists of purposely saving those 3 mana in the early turns so that you can play a 6 mana spell on turn 3. So you give up on your turn 1 and turn 2, but then you catch up with a huge play on turn 3 for 6 mana. But this is just one example of one way to use this spell or banked mana. Simply put, you have the option of not using all of your mana, while in other games you usually have to use all of your mana, otherwise you'll be on a huge disadvantage. It makes the game less about who has the X mana card and more about who will play their tools in the best way and with the best combinations. Who will think that the 5 mana card is actually not worth playing on a turn 5, because if you play a 2 mana card on turn 5, you'll actually have 9 mana to spend on turn 6. Next subcategory, alternating turns. On Legends of Runeterra, turns work a bit differently from other card games. For example, you can't attack on every turn. In the beginning of the game, it's randomly decided if you are going to attack on odd or even turns. And on the turns that you are attacking, you have the first action. But after that action, depending on what it is, the opponent will then have the option to act or to pass back to you. And the turn only ends when both players pass. They basically say that they don't have anything else they want to do on that turn. So in theory, a turn is actually infinite, because if both players keep acting on their actions, then the turn won't end. But this never happens. There is always a point where you'll run out of mana, so you'll have to pass because you don't have anything to do. Why is this cool? Well, this is cool because of interactions and mind games. But let's go back to the attacking part. And this actually ties with the next subcategory, which is combat tricks. In LOR, you have to declare an attack. After you put your units on the attacking field, the opponent has a chance to declare their defense, how they want to defend your attack. But during all of this, something else can happen. We call it combat tricks. So there are 3 categories of spells in LOR. One of them is slow spells, which you can play just like you play units. Imagine that it's a unit without a stat line and with an effect. That's basically a slow spell. And there's also fast spells and burst spells. I won't go super into how these work. It might seem kind of complicated when you first look into it, but trust me, after your first couple of games, you'll understand perfectly how it works. And you might make a mistake here or there, but you'll pick it up very quickly. Both of these types of spells, fast and burst spells, can be used in response to something. In response to an attack, in response to another spell. except the burst ones. That's the difference. The burst spells can't be responded to, while the fast ones can. So imagine I declare my attack with, let's say, 2 units. The other player can actually respond with fast spells and burst spells. He doesn't have to use only the units he has on board to defend himself. He can defend himself with spells, with fast and burst spells. And just like spell mana, this brings out a lot of strategy into the game. So every time you are thinking about preparing your attack and declaring your attack, you have to also be thinking about how much mana the opponent has and what they might be able to do with that mana. It might be a better option to simply pass and keep your units to next turn and see what you can do to protect them next turn. It might be a better option to attack with what you have and then protect your units against the enemy spells. These fast and burst spells are certainly very useful on the attacking phase, let's call it, when you are attacking and defending yourself, but that's not their only purpose. Fast and slow spells, when played, they don't immediately take effect. The action is given to the other player. So, for example, a very common interaction is the use of a card called Glimpse Beyond, which makes you kill a unit of your own to draw 2 cards. An opponent that has enough mana and is expecting that card to be played can actually cancel the effect of that spell by killing that unit before the enemy does. So imagine the unit has 1 HP and the opponent uses that Glimpse Beyond card that kills the unit to draw 2 cards. Because it's a fast spell, the action is given to the other player and the other player has an option to play a card that deals 1 damage to their units. And after playing that card, if it is a fast spell, the action is given to the other player. And if the other player doesn't have anything they can use, then the line of events will trigger. And it will trigger from the newest played to the latest. So first it's gonna activate the spell that you played to deal 1 damage to the unit, and then it will try to activate the spell that kills the unit to draw 2 cards. But because you kill the unit, then the spell can't trigger because its target is not available, is not there. What this means is that the opponent won't draw the 2 cards. So bottom line, a lot of strategy in LOR. Love it. Next category, beginner-friendly alternative modes. This one is actually very easy and quick to explain. Expeditions are just like Hearthstone's arena mode, but instead of making the player use up their currency to be able to play, in LOR you are actually given a certain number of, let's call it, tickets to play this mode for free. In my opinion, it's a better mode than Arena in Hearthstone because you get basically 2 chances of getting a high score instead of having only 1 chance to get a high score. Then we have Gauntlet, which is not really beginner friendly because you do have to use your own cards, but it's basically a mode with alternative rules. I'll be honest, it's not the best mode, but it does have potential to get better in the future. What is an amazing mode is Labs, and this is super beginner friendly because you don't use your own cards at all. You are given either decks to choose from or decks randomly with also very crazy rules. It's very similar to Tavern Brawl from Hearthstone. The rules we have been given so far, the modes we have been given with Labs, that also change every 2 weeks, I think, have been amazing. And then we also have challenges. It's basically a bunch of beginner level puzzles, not hard at all, but that are very good at teaching you how the new mechanics work. And you also get XP from them, which is awesome. Next up, we have one of the most important categories, if not the most important, which is the reward system of LOR. Now, I come from a community, if you haven't understood already, I come from Hearthstone mainly. And the community there understood very well that Hearthstone, despite being free to play, it isn't really free to play. What I mean by this is that the only real way to acquire the cards that you need to play competitively is by either spending your own money or by playing huge amounts of time every single day. And that's something LOR didn't want to copy. They made a very beginner-friendly game with the reward system they have in place. So there's something called Weekly Vault on LOR, which is a huge reward that you get every week on a certain day. Right now it's on Thursdays. And this reward gets bigger and bigger the more experience you gain during the week. And experience is gained through doing quests, which you get 1 per day, and they accumulate up to 3 quests, very similarly to Hearthstone. And you can also get experience from daily wins. So the first win of the day is 400 XP, the second win of the day is 200 if I'm not mistaken. And you also get experience from playing on every other alternative mode, so gauntlets, labs, expeditions. So basically, a player that comes in every day to simply do their quests, their daily quests, and get 1 or 2 wins, if they do this every day, they will end up with a huge reward on Thursday with his weekly vault. For example, yesterday, which was Wednesday, there was a patch, there was an expansion actually, with a bunch of new cards coming out. So Wednesday this happened, and Thursday was when players had the opportunity to open their vaults. So on my vault, for example, I got a huge amount of cards from that new expansion. If you do play a reasonable amount every day, you will have the chance to build 1 or 2, at least 1, but sometimes 2 very competitive decks out of your weekly vault, simply out of your weekly vault rewards. But weekly vaults are not the only thing on this reward system, which I think it's amazing. Another huge way for people to get the cards they need is with the region XP rewards. So LOR has these regions, it's like colors in Magic, and they have these rewards that you can acquire through gaining experience. And they have this for every region. I've played the game a bunch, and I still have a long way to go on these rewards. What I mean to say is that LOR has a very beginner-friendly reward system, which I appreciate greatly. The extra category that I haven't mentioned yet is memes. Basically, the devs are awesome and super community-focused. When people complain about something, they fix it in the next patch or in the next 2 patches. And besides that, check out the emotes released this patch. Instead of waiting for their emotes to become memes, like well played in Hearthstone, they made emotes based on memes. So think about that and then go download Legends of Runeterra, yeah? Okay, bye!